Every day means every day, and in today's video, I'm going to be showing you the 8 things that you absolutely need to do right now in your 20s if you want to be successful, hyper successful later on in your life. These 8 things are the catalysts that are going to set you up for the life that you want to have, for the freedom that you want to be able to enjoy. Now, listen, I'm not saying that if you're past your 20s already at the time when you're watching this video, that these things are not going to help you. They're going to be effective no matter who you are or what phase of life that you're in. But the reason I've titled this video How to Maximize Your 20s is because if you can do these 8 things earlier on in your life, I promise you, you're going to get even more results from them. The results are going to be amplified and magnified. Why? Because quite frankly, you're going to have more time to enjoy the results and the benefits. And listen, I know that on the internet right now, there's this big movement of positive psychology, and there's so many people that are telling you to slow down, take your time. It's not a competition. It's not a race. And quite frankly, I think that those people who preach those sorts of messages are charlatans. I disagree with it to the depths of my very spirit. Why? Because the essence of ambition, the essence of competition is to do more, to do better, and to get it done faster. And again, you're going to have more time to enjoy the fruits of that labor the quicker you get it done. So again, if you're in your 30s, 40s, 50s, all of these 8 principles are still going to work for you, and they're still going to amplify your success and the results that you experience in your life. However, the earlier you can get these things done, I'm telling you, the more of an impact it's going to make on you. And I feel somewhat qualified to speak on these because these 8 things are exactly what I learned throughout my 20s. Now, I did some of these correctly, and on some of these 8 principles, I made mistakes. And I want to be able to give you the lessons from those mistakes, from not following some of these 8 principles, without you having to go out there and learn the hard way on your own. And if you're asking yourself, like, well, who's this guy to even be talking about it? Listen, I'm not a multi-bajillionaire yet with 3 helicopters, 4 boats, and a private jet. I'm on the way, but I don't have that just yet. But I am 27 years old. I've made multiple 6 figures, started multiple companies. I've worked with some of the biggest names in the world. Eric Thomas is a client. Deion Sanders was a client. Master P's been a client of mine. I've worked with 8-figure entrepreneurs. I've worked with Olympic athletes as a peak performance coach and a motivational speaker. I've worked with Grammy and Emmy award-winning artists. So I've been around a lot of these people. And a lot of what I'm telling you in this video, yes, part of it comes from my experience, but there's another part of it that comes from just being blessed to be in an environment where I'm around a lot of these elite, high-achieving individuals that I've gotten to learn from them. Hey, what'd you do in your 20s? What'd you do to set yourself up for this type of life that you live right now? And in this video, I want to combine that experience both from my own life as well as all of these other individuals that I've been surrounded by. And so without further ado, the 8 principles are as follows. And I'm telling you, when you hear these 8 things, do not sit around and meditate on them. Okay, that's the biggest piece of advice I can give you just off rip. Do not sit around and think, oh yeah, it's a great idea. Let me take a couple notes and that's a good idea. That made me feel good to think about it and learn about it. No. You have to apply what you learn now. Okay, I'm telling you, especially in your early 20s, you think you got a ton of time. You think you have all the time in the world. You think you're so young. The reality is time goes by quicker than you could possibly imagine, and it accelerates. There's been scientific studies that show this. This is a proven phenomenon. Your subjective perception of time collapses the older you get, meaning your experience of time is actually faster as you begin to get older. And I'm feeling it for real in my late 20s now as a 27-year-old. I can't imagine how this is going to feel in my 30s, 40s, 50s, and 60s, all right? So you need to take action now. But with that being said, what are the 8 principles? Number 1, I need you to figure out who you are and what you want. And I know that sounds so basic and so simple and so rudimentary, but to be honest with you, a lot of people go to school for years. They go get master's degrees and PhDs, and they learn all of this information. And at the end of it all, they still don't know who they are and what they want. You need to take the time to sit down and do what I call the perfect day exercise. Grab a pen, grab a piece of paper, and write down if you got to have the perfect day. Forget what other people think. Forget being realistic. Forget what opportunities you think that you have and what opportunities you think that you don't have. And just write out what's your perfect day look like. From the moment you wake up to the moment you go to bed. What do you want? Where you want to live? Where do you want to wake up at? Right? Who do you want to wake up with? Who do you want to spend this time with? Where do you want to be? What do you want to do? Do you want to do anything for work? Do you want to just be a content creator? Do you want to do nothing? Do you want to set up a system where you do literally nothing? You're nameless and faceless on the internet and you just make enough money to sustain that lifestyle. Like, what do you want? Do you need to be a billionaire? Do you need to be a millionaire? Are you good at a certain level? You got to figure out what you want. And more importantly, you got to figure out what you value. Do you value freedom and lifestyle and money more than you value connections and relationships? Okay, you might be just a hardcore business person and you might not have a ton of friends. Are you somebody who values relationship more than you value money? Are you somebody who values maybe your faith, your spirituality? Do you value doing things the right way as opposed to just the bottom line result? You got to start to learn what you're about. You got to start to learn what you believe in, because unfortunately what happens is as we get older, we get exposed to more and more things and more people. And maybe we go to school, we go to college, and then we get around a bunch of people, or we go get a job at some big corporation, we get around a bunch of people there. And all these different groups of people have their own belief systems, their own value systems, their own thought process. And if you don't know who you are and what you stand for and what you believe in, you'll end up allowing these people that you find yourself around to make those decisions for you. And now you become a person and live a life based on a value system that's not even yours. So I'm not here to tell you one way or the other. I'm just here to tell you, you got to do the work, the inner work, to figure out who you are, what you want, what you believe in, what you value. If you can figure that out, it's more valuable than any degree, any certification, any schooling. I'm telling you, that is the thing that most people miss. And the reason that people end up becoming wandering generalities, the reason that people in their 30s and 40s end up frustrated, changing jobs, in toxic relationships, the reason that they end up in those situations is because they never knew who they were and what they were looking for. All right, so that's number one. Figure out who you are and what you want. Number two, all right, develop yourself mentally, physically, and socially. You need to be a machine, a freaking monster. Podcasts, audiobooks, ebooks, physical copies of books. You need to, so courses, things like my courses, things like Jordan Peterson has Peterson Academy. There's a million different things out there. You can learn anything. And your brain right now has the most energy that you will ever have in your entire life. Your brain right now has the most plasticity that it will ever have in its entire life, meaning you can learn things quicker and more easily than you will ever be able to at any other point in your life. Right now, you have that opportunity. You owe it to yourself to take advantage of that opportunity, all right? As much as you can learn about all the different fields that you're interested in. I remember being 16 years old and reading the great personal development books from Les Brown, from Zig Ziglar, from Tony Robbins, Eric Thomas. I was getting that information early on. I was listening to their audio tapes. I was reading books about business. I was trying to understand digital marketing. How do you run ads? How do you build a website? How do you market your message? How do you write headlines? How do you do email copywriting? I had to figure all this stuff out because I knew generally what I wanted my life to look like. It wasn't hyper specific yet when I was a teenager, but I knew that the more that I learned about those different topics, the more equipped that I would be. I'd be armed with something to go out there and actually attack my goals. So develop yourself mentally. Also develop yourself physically. You're stronger right now, especially if you're in your early 20s or mid 20s, you're stronger physically than you will ever be. I look back even on my early 20s when I was 20, 21, 22 at how much I used to work out, and I'm astonished. I'm utterly astonished at the level of energy that I had to just freaking get after it. It's insane. I mean, I remember a summer where I was fighting to make the team at the University of Michigan. I literally worked out 7 hours a day. It was ridiculous. But that's the kind of stuff you can do when you're in your 20s, and it's never going to be this easy. You're never going to have this level of energy or this level of time and this level of lack of responsibility. I don't care how much responsibility you think you have right now. It only increases. It is a strictly increasing function of time. Your overall burden of responsibility to other people and your obligations in life. It only goes up with time. So use this time to develop yourself physically, because quite frankly, if you get to the point, this is one of the things that I did right, and I kind of stumbled into it because of my athletic career. I didn't necessarily do it consciously and intentionally, but I'm glad that it worked out this way. If you get to a certain point in your health and fitness in your 20s, what it takes to maintain it is so much lower than what it takes to get there if you've been screwing it up for a decade or two before that, right? If you turn 30 and you've never worked out before, we got work to do. It takes time and dedication and real commitment and real work. If you've been in shape for the last 10 years, maintaining that, it's a cheat code, all right? And lastly, develop yourself socially. This is the one that I messed up on. I didn't make enough friends in college. I didn't make enough friends in school. And even just networking in my early career, I didn't put myself out there enough with other people. You never know who people will become one day. You never know. And you also never know how those relationships can benefit you and them mutually later on in life, okay? If you are an introvert like I was and still am, you have to push yourself. You have to push yourself. You're going to get more exposure. You're going to have more leverage. You're going to get more opportunities from those people. I think Brad Lee always used to say, the more hands you shake, the more money you're going to make. And even if you want to take finances out of it, the more opportunities you're going to have, all right? Push yourself to develop mentally, physically, socially. That's principle number 2. Principle number 3 that you need to be doing in your 20s if you want to set yourself up for success in life is do hard things really often. Do really, really difficult things often. What I've noticed is that my sense of confidence these days is much more balanced. I have a sense of confidence from my extrinsic skill sets. I'm good at speaking. I'm good at building businesses. I'm good at certain things in the world that make me valuable and useful. And especially from a masculine perspective, that's where a lot of your confidence comes from, is your competence and your standing in your usefulness and utility in the social hierarchy, right? But early on, you don't really have that because you don't know anything when you're 18, 19, 20 years old. I mean, you haven't accomplished anything yet. So where does the confidence come from? Not necessarily from this resume of undeniable proof. That's where you want to get to. But at first, it comes from an internal place. It comes from who you are, from your essence, from your spirit, from who you know yourself to be. This is why my philosophy of every day means every day is so important to me. I want to prove to myself that I'm committed and consistent. I don't want to think that I'm committed and consistent. I want to prove to myself that I'm disciplined and that I'm tough. I don't want to hope that I'm disciplined and that I'm tough. So when you're early on in your journey, do difficult things consistently. And I'm telling you, it's going to change the way that you perceive yourself. You're going to look in the mirror and start to say, you know what? This kid's all right. This kid's got grit. This kid's tough. This kid wants it. And that is worth its weight in gold, I promise you, because that is what you need to then translate that into more tangible accomplishments later on in your life. Do difficult things. Push yourself consistently. Number 4, focus on direction over perfection. So many young people right now are trying to figure out, here's the 20-year roadmap of my career. It's not going to go that way. I promise you, I promise you, I promise you. That's not how, there's that old saying, man plans and God laughs. That has been proven to be true over and over and over again in my life. Now, I'm not saying that you shouldn't have some kind of a strategic plan, maybe for the next year or two, but again, be fixed on the end goal and the end destination. Be very flexible on the path that you take to get there. All right? Focus on direction more than perfection. You don't have to have the whole thing mapped out right now, but you do need to have a general idea of, okay, I think somewhere in that general vicinity is where I think I'm trying to go. For me, when I got linked up with Eric Thomas, for those who might not know the story, I was an unpaid internship for ET, the #1 motivational speaker in the world. At that time, I never knew that I wanted to become a speaker or a peak performance coach or have my own events or sell my own courses or have my own products and businesses and apps and all these different things. I didn't know that. What I did know was that there was somebody that was in an industry where they were making a positive impact on human beings and genuinely moving the needle for them and getting other people results. And they were making a ton of money while they were doing it. And I was like, wow, this guy's super successful. He has a ton of freedom and he's really helping people. I think, I don't know exactly what I want to do, but I think I want to go in that direction. That is how this all started. Direction over perfection. Figure out basically more or less where you want to go. Carl Jung has this really cool idea called circumambulation. And what it means is that if you start from here and your goal, you think your goal is here, you start to take steps and move towards your goal. But when you get closer to your goal, you realize it's not really exactly precisely here. It's kind of more like over here. So then you course correct and you start taking steps over here. And then you get closer and you're like, oh, it's actually kind of over here. And you spiral inward towards your true purpose, your true calling, and what you really should be doing with your life. But it takes time. You got to move towards where it looks like it might be in order to gain further clarity on where it really is. All right, so that's number 4, direction over perfection. Number 5, find a mentor. Find a mentor. The reason you need a mentor is because it's going to shortcut the process of you getting into rooms that you have no business being in yet. I was in rooms with billionaires when I was 24. Why? Because I had worked my way up to become Eric Thomas's right-hand man. And I was helping him plan conferences. I was helping him plan events. I was the one that he trusted with these A-list celebrity speakers, these billionaire entrepreneurs, his friends. He trusted me to be the point of contact with them and make sure they had a phenomenal experience. And so I got to get behind the scenes, see what these people are really like. Hear the conversations that they're having with one another. See what they're actually focused on. Watch the way that they process information. Figure out how they make decisions. Figure out what data they use to understand how to operate and move in their environment. I'm learning billionaire skills, and intrinsically, I have no reason to be there. I'm not supposed to be in a room like that. But because I was connected to the right mentor, now all of a sudden, I was in that room. Here's the other thing that it did for me. It showed me the behind the scenes, because what a lot of the online gurus are going to show you is psychologically designed to market their courses to you. They're trying to make you buy stuff. They're not showing you the real of what, when you pull the curtain away, how does this business actually operate? What are all the moving pieces? What actually moves the needle? How do you handle balancing business and relationships? How do you do this? You get to see things up close and personal instead of taking 20 years to figure it all out on your own. Cut your learning curve down by getting around a mentor. I don't care if you got to pay for it. I don't care if, like I did a free internship and then I operated in such excellence that he ended up saying, hey, you got to stick around. That's a great way to do it. But at the end of the day, no matter how you do it, get yourself in proximity to the people who you want to be like. Because I promise you, no matter what you want to have in life, somebody already has it. Somebody's already figured it out. You just got to get close to them so you can reverse engineer their process. All right, that's number 5. Number 6, this is a controversial one. Say yes to everything and embody excellence when you do. Say yes to everything. All this talk about you got to be hyper specific, you got to be niched, you got to be, you got to guard your time. Nonsense. Now, when you're 30 and you're established in your career path, and maybe you're married with a kid or something, yes, boundaries, protect your time, all the feel good stuff. But dude, if you're 20, 21, 22, 23 years old, say yes to everything, because you don't know anything yet. And I'm saying this as somebody who was once in my early 20s, had a high IQ, had degrees from one of the best schools in the country, had a lot of experience. I had kind of done things that I thought made me somebody when I was in my early 20s. And now that I'm, 7 years down the line, I'm like, oh, I was an idiot. I didn't even know what I didn't know. I was so horribly ignorant. And I was, on some levels, more successful than, I think people would expect at that age. But from an objective standpoint, I didn't know what I didn't know. And looking back, I'm so much more developed now than I was back then. And the way that I bridged that gap was by saying yes to everything. Oh, ET, you need slides? I didn't say, that's not my job. I'm not a graphic designer. I said, let me download Canva and figure this thing out, right? I didn't say, oh, this isn't in alignment with exactly, again, direction over perfection. It doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to be exact. Say yes to everything. Get the experience, get the exposure, and build the reputation for being excellent at everything that your hands find to do. Bible says, everything your hands find to do, do with all your might. That means that no matter what you're working on, whether it's a menial task or whether it is this giant project, Do it with true excellence. Put everything you have into it. A lot of people don't know, I was the janitor at a gymnastics summer camp for years before I went to college at the University of Michigan. I did so well as the janitor that they invited me back year after year after year and allowed me to stay the entire summer. I met the assistant coach at the University of Michigan for their men's gymnastics team while serving as the janitor at that camp. I would never have met him had I not done such a good job and put all of myself into that very menial job. I never would have met him. Had I not met him, I never would have gone to U of M. Had I never gone to U of M, I never would have met Eric Thomas. Had I never met Eric Thomas, I never would have met these billionaires, been in these rooms, had the exposure, blah, blah, blah. You understand how this is going? Say yes to everything. You have time. You have nothing but time. You don't have a ton of skills yet. You don't have money yet. You don't have anything yet. But what you do have is time. So just say yes to stuff and put forth that excellence, that effort, and then become known for that. And I promise you, that is what's going to set you apart from everybody else. All right? That's what's going to set the stage for these future opportunities. Every opportunity is another opportunity for your next opportunity. That's an Eric Thomas quote. I stole it, but it's very, very true. All right? That's number, what was that? 6. Number 7. The last 2 are very controversial. Number 7, I'm going to speak specifically to my young men right now. Young men in their 20s. I know I got a few females who watch this channel. Not a lot, but a few. Okay? This one specifically for the fellas. Do not worry about dating. Do not chase girls. Do not chase women. Do not. I'm telling you, it is a massive waste of time. You don't even know who you're going to become yet. She doesn't know who you're going to become yet. And the whole Romeo Juliet thing of, oh, we found each other when we were 15 years old, 16 years old, and we grew together. Have I seen it work? Yeah. Is that the norm? No. I believe you are better off not distracting yourself with, let's just call it what it is, chase and tail, and focusing on developing yourself into who you can possibly have the potential to become, build yourself up, and then when you're more established and you're actually ready to start a family and be a leader and actually exhibit some masculine leadership and not just try and chase instant gratification and pleasure, then go into dating. If you do not do that, the level of distraction and the lack of focus that you're going to experience is going to set you back 5 to 10 years. I guarantee it. Because this is a mistake that I made. I was caught up in dating and trying to chase girls. I was caught up in all these different things, and it's a waste of time. There's no long-term benefit. There's only consequences, short-term and long-term. The stress. I mean, dude, like, you can't be talking to multiple women and trying to do all this stuff and just have a good time and live your little Dan Bilzerian thing. Like, you can't do that and also be locked in on building who you are. You can't build a company that way. You can't build yourself that way. You can't learn and develop to your full potential that way. It's just not going to happen. You're distracted. You're not focused. And you're stressed out. And you're thinking about stuff that is just pulling you off course. By the way, the original definition of the Hebrew word for sin is to miss the mark. It's not that what you're trying to do is evil, but it's that it's missing the mark of what your life could be and should be. All right? If you want to indulge in that side of life later on, fine. But I would recommend build yourself up first, and then when you're ready to truly lead a woman and lead a family, then you go back and you do that. Okay? But you got to have a little bit of experience to be able to lead. You got to have a little bit of growing pains first. You got to be able to go through some stuff. You need to be a grown man, not a boy. And most people try and do the dating thing when they're still boys. All right? And it's not helpful. It's not productive. Again, controversial. That's what I believe. That was my experience. Last but not least, number 8, again, controversial. Take financial risks. Take financial risks. Buy a car that's a little too expensive. But feel what it's like when you pull up at valet and they leave your stuff out front, because take the risk. Make it, go on a trip around the world that you can barely afford and get the exposure, gain the experience, because you're going to crave it again. Go fly first class even though you have no business flying first class, because you're going to crave it again. Exposure is what's going to change what you expect of yourself. I always tell people that exposure elevates expectations. You have to be willing to take a little bit of a risk to get yourself that exposure so that your expectations of who you are, what your identity is, what you're capable of, what you deserve, is elevated. Or take that money, start a company, right? It takes money to produce an energy drink or supplements or apparel or build an app or all these different things. That takes money. Take the financial risk to build something. Because here's the reality. If you go bankrupt at 25, it's off your credit at 32. It's 7 years. And you're still super young. And in that time, you wipe that slate clean, and then you can still go get some sales job. You learn sales, you're making 200 grand a year. It's not that difficult if you know the skills and the path to take, right? So take those risks while you're young. As my dad once told me, if you start with nothing and lose it all, do the math. Now is the time where you have the energy and the risk tolerance. You can't take risks like that when you got 4 kids to take care of. You can take the risks now. Put the blinders on and just freaking attack whatever that life is that you want to create for yourself. Because you have the ability to bounce back now based on your energy, based on your youth. You're not going to be able to do that later on in life. All right? So those financial risks, that entrepreneurial goal that you have, that dream, that vision, that exposure that you want to get, that life you want to live, do it now. Do it now. Even if it's a little bit risky. Even if Dave Ramsey wouldn't tell you to do it. Do it early so that it sets you up to be a little bit more responsible later down the line, but you can taste it first. I'm telling you, when you taste stuff like that in life, it changes the way that you move and the way that you operate. You can't be super irresponsible, but you can't be too conservative either. I think Tristan Tate said something that I really, really liked. Again, controversial figure, but I really love this. He said he spends 50% of his money like he's going to die tomorrow, and he spends 50% of his money like he's going to live another 100 years. I think that's the way to do it. Take those risks while you're young. Hey, I hope you enjoyed this video. Please send it to somebody who you feel like could get value from. And if you know somebody that's in that age range, send this to them and be accountability partners with one another. Send this to them and say, hey, I think that we both need to be doing these 8 things to set ourselves up later on in life. Let's be accountability partners. Let's do this thing together. All right? I hope that you'll consider going to everydaymeanseveryday.com, enrolling in the app, mindset, fitness, habits. I'm going to help you develop the same way that we talked about within these 8 steps. But for sure, make sure that you share this video with a friend, subscribe, comment below what your favorite step was and how you plan to execute it. My name is Brandon Burns. Until next time, don't forget that every day means every day.